예, 그러면은 빨리 드시고 빨리 가고 싶으시죠? 이 모든 사람의 마음이 똑같아요. 이쯤 되면은 언제 예, 제가 잠깐 메리암을 소개할게요. 메리암이 원래 어느 나라 사람 친구예요? 러시아? 러시아. 아니 근데 러시아 사람도 키가 크잖아요. 좀 우리는 이제 왕국을 키워야 돼요. 사람이 어떤 인종일까? 아니 그날 안 가고 싶으면 틀림없어요. 이렇게 안 생겼다니까요. 빨리 케밥이래요. 아니 비슷해요. 이렇게 앞에 있는 터키. 아니에요. 그 옆에 있는 나라인데 그리스 나라 아니 그 페르시아 아세요? 이랑이에요. 발음이 약간 페르시아 말인데 메리암이 자기 발음이 더 알아듣기 쉽다고. 왜냐면 자기 그 발음이 더 이렇게 정확하다고 생각하는데 더 어려워. 그래서
we are very close because we are all neighbors. Russia and Turkey and Iran, all very close.
그래서 성이 살로. 예, 그럼 인사하세요.
Thank you very much for being here. And my name is Mariam Saluhi, and I am originally from Iran. And our language is Farsi or Persian. And we don't have, unfortunately, we don't have as many as the schools that do have as heritage languages here. Students or teachers here, as Iran is always proud of it, and it's really good for them. Really, I wish that we had this for Persian students also. And today is the weekend before our New Year. But then Leon asked me to come. I said certainly I will come because I know that Korean teachers are very active and very good, and I am also very proud to be here. Thank you very much for being here.
아니 근데 이해하시나 봐요. 왜 웃으세요? 다 이해하시네요. 오늘 여기 세계거든요. 그래서 원래는 잘 안 돌아다니는데 한국 선생님들이 오신다고 했어요. 너무 열심히 하시니까 소문이 났어요. 마이크 쓰신 거 아닌가요? 마이크?
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, I know. I have a little voice. So please ask me a question. Whenever you have any question, you just can ask me. There is no problem with that. And I want to start with one question. As students and as teachers of heritage language teachers, what is your main goal? Could you please give me some of your goals as a teacher? What do you want to instill in your students?
학생들에게 무엇을 원하세요? 어떤 목표를 가지고 계세요? 한글학교 선생님으로서. 네. 아니 한 번 하셔도 돼요.
And what else, please?
다른 거 혹시 있어요?
My goal is as a mom, I just want to have a communication with them. I just want to let them know the mother tongue. That's my personal goal.
And it's very important. That's really why I am here, because I want to show you ways that you can promote motivation of heritage language speakers, because it's very important for us as Persian American or as Korean American to teach our children and our students heritage language. And one of the best ways that we can promote achievement in learning language, it doesn't matter if it's a second language or foreign language or heritage language, is to promote motivation and engagement of the students. And one of the ways that we can promote this is by involving them in the assessment process. Because as we know, I'm still a student, and at this age, even at this age, whenever I have an exam or I have a test, I get nervous. And anxiety way to reduce the anxiety of performance and involvement in a test is to involve a student in the process of the test, in the process of an assessment. And could you give me some examples of assessment? Or first of all, could you give me what is the difference between assessment and grading?
여기까지 이해하셨어요? 그러니까 그 시험이라는 것이 평가를 받는다는 것이 항상 굉장히 스트레스가 있잖아요. 그래서 학생들을 자극하는 데 굉장히 도움은 되지만 학생들이 그 평가하는 중에 그 학생들이 같이 하는 것이 학생들에게 굉장히 좋다는 얘기인데 지금 레이암이 물어본 거는 혹시 그레이딩 하는 거하고 어세스먼트, 평가하고의 차이점을 아시는지 그리고 어떤 평가 방법을 쓰고 계신지. 예.
The assessment part is the trying to find the level of the students. You see what kind of like a mail assessment test, you know.
Yes.
You'll find that the level of the actual where they are, so that when you take a course next year, it goes by the assessment test score.
Yes, very good, yes. Grading is just grading. It's just a score that we give a student to say, okay, this is your level. But assessment is what we do as a process to see what a student level is and how we can adjust our strategies to help the student and to make him or her available to make progress. As this is a very, very good old saying that I believe it, which Patricia Neal says. You can go to next slide, please. A master can tell you what he expects for you, but a teacher can make you awake of your own expectations. So the difference between a teacher and between a master or between an expert is that teacher tells you what you need to do as your own progress. Because everyone can tell me I am not good at this or I am good at this. But this that I realize it myself, how I am doing in a test or in a class or learning something myself, that is very important. Because that way I can focus on my own weaknesses or my own strength and work on that. It's not enough for me to be just told that do this or do that. I have to realize that myself. And one of the ways that is helpful in doing that is self-assessment. But before going to self-assessment practices, I want to show you some of the differences between summative assessment and formative assessment. What is summative assessment and what is formative assessment? You can go to next, please. Assessment is very strong tool because it can increase or it can inhibit learning. Because if I am in the process of an assessment and I know that what is my level, I can improve myself. But if I just have the anxiety or if I am just not self-efficacious, it means that I don't believe in my own ability to improve my learning, then I can inhibit and I can withdraw. As we see, there are many withdrawal, especially in any kind of language learning, but especially in heritage language learning, because our kids, our students, they are really distracted by many, many things. They are, most of them, they are born here or they are exposed to, different cultures. So for them to be engaged and to be motivated to learn their language is not easy. They have many distractions. So there are ways that we can do to encourage their motivation, and one of them is making them involved in the process of assessment. But how we can do that? We have to be flexible. We have to really change our strategies, our teaching strategies, based on what they need and what they want. We can do the assessment, the formative assessment, and figure it out. And there are differences between formative assessment and summative assessment. Formative assessment, is anyone here who is familiar with formative assessment?
잠깐 여기까지 이해하셨어요? 아니 지금 이
And please ask me if you have any question.
아니 메리엄이 얘기하는 게 두 가지가 굉장히 중요한 어세스먼트가 평가거든요. 이 두 가지를 꼭 아셔야 돼요. 나중에 다른 데 인터뷰 가시면 꼭 물어봐요. 두 가지가 있는데 하나는 서머티브, 하나는 포머티브. 지금 포머티브 어세스먼트에 대해서 얘기하는데 포머티브 어세스먼트에 대해서 아시는지 전혀 모르세요? 그러면은 그동안 썼던 평가 방법은 뭔가요?
So is overall assessment answer or formative what you have learned?
Okay. Summative assessment. Could you go to the next slide, please? Summative assessment is after we do the instruction and we just expect the students to take some tests, and by doing that we want to see how they have done in the test. And it can be, set, for example, twice during a semester, or 3 times during a year, or once in a week. But it's not something which is ongoing. But formative assessment is something that is ongoing and is a combination of many assessments. And we as teachers, we do it as much as it's possible. It's not predetermined. It's not that we say, okay, just a midterm and just a final. But we do it regularly as we need to do that. And also in formative assessment, we involve the student in the process of assessment. We involve them in peer feedback. We involve them in collaboration and teamwork. Okay, is there any question about formative assessment?
여기까지 이해하셨어요? 그러면 우리가 그동안 봤던 학기말 시험 다음 레벨로 넘어가기 위해 시험은 뭐죠? 맞아요. 그러면은 내가 다음 주에 지난주에 우리 숫자에 대해서 배웠는데 얘네들이 숫자를 셀 수 있나? 한번 잠깐 체크해보는 거는? 네. 그래서 학기 중간에 아무 데나 쓰실 수 있고 그룹으로도 할 수 있고 개인적으로도 할 수 있고 여러 가지 형태의 평가 방법이 있습니다.
Next, please. Okay. What is summative assessment? We call summative assessment is assessment of learning. Assessment of how you are doing in your learning. But summative assessment is also a method that are mostly used in traditional classrooms. But in student-centered classrooms, that's nowadays they are more, research shows that a student-centered classroom is more helpful for motivating and engaging students. We know as teachers and researchers, we introduce formative assessment. And formative assessment is assessment for learning. There is a good saying that says, if you consider your students as plants, if you consider each student as a plant, measuring how it grows, it can be like summative assessment. But watering a plant, then give it in a very nice environment, enough sun, enough light, and then giving them enough vitamins or food to that plant, and then measure that growth is formative assessment. So summative as versus formative. Summative is just watering the plant, but formative is nice environment for the plant, vitamins for the plant, sun and light for the plant. And after all of these, then we can measure the growth. And there are also some comparison of the assessment. What is important in formative assessment is that it's going and going and going and is having feedback. Feedback is very, very important in formative assessment. It means that what I do is I give a test, or I give not even a test, I can do it just a self-assessment, and then I provide the student with feedback. But summative assessment, what the summative assessment does is that it is just a grade. I tell a student, this is your grade, okay, but I don't provide him or her with any feedback. Okay. Are we here clear about summative and formative assessment?
여기까지 이해하셨어? 그러면 선생님들께서 이제 애들을 시험 보기 하고 틀렸어, 맞았어, 100점, 90점 무슨 예, 그런데 이 메리엄이 어떤 것이 더 중요하다고? 포마티브는 무엇을 위해서 하는 건가요? 피드백은 그 중에 하나의 툴인데 학생들이 더 많이 발전할 수 있게 도와주는 역할을 하는 평가고, 서머티브는 마지막에 얘네들이 얼만큼 잘했나를 체크하는 거예요. 그래서 이 포마티브가 더 중요하다는 거죠. 학생들한테 자극을 주기 위해서 좀 더 동기유발을 시켜주기 위해서. 여기까지 이해하셨습니까? 예.
Could you give me some example of formative and summative assessment that you usually do in your classrooms?
The vocabulary test or behavior test. Oral test.
Oral test? Okay. And how many times do you usually do it during a semester?
Once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think giving the students feedback after the test is a good idea? Do you think it's helpful?
Of course.
How do you think the students appreciate your feedback and consider your feedback?
For example, young student, I give a sticker and give a small gift.
That's very good. That's very good. Award really promote the extrinsic motivation, which is very important. Any kind of award, promote extrinsic motivation. But we also want to increase their intrinsic, internal or inner motivation. We want them to learn just for the sake of learning, not just for having award or being praised with their parents. Because if it's just for award, it can be very temporary. But we want them to be motivated to learn permanently. Because especially language learning is not something that can be achieved in a short period of time. Maybe conversation needs shorter time, but academic, which we are also promoting for our children to be able to academically be involved and have knowledge in a heritage language. We want them to know how to write and read. It's very important that they not just even be able to talk with us, which is very, very important, but we also want them to be motivated to later on in life they go and study everything, reading, writing, not just talking. But even if as teachers we want them to start talking with us and start talking with themselves in a group, their heritage language is very important. And we can promote that with group work in our classrooms. We assign them a small group, 3, 4 students in one group, and they can not only just work with each other in a project, they can also give each other peer feedback.
아니, 너무 중요한 말씀을 해주셨네요. 제가 그동안 한글학교에서 스티커 막 나눠줬던 거 다시 다 빼요. 이런 거 너무 순간적인 동기유발이라는 거죠. 근데 그래서 애들이 이거 잘하면 엄마가 기뻐하니까, 잘하면 선생님 이거 주니까, 이런 식으로 동기유발을 하면 단기적인 효과는 있지만 장기적으로 특히 언어를 배울 때는 라이프 롱 러닝이 되잖아요. 나중에 읽고 쓰고 대학교 가서도 하고 할 때까지 하려면 자체적인 내면의 모티베이션, 동기가 필요한데, 내면의 동기유발이 더 중요해요. 외면주의.
Any question?
여기까지 질문 주세요. 동기유발에 대한 얘기죠. 그리고 아까 들어갈 때
I guess the question is that how would you, I know that you're trying to figure it out, you know, is it external versus internal motivation? You know, so I have to figure out how can we, that the students know the importance of the learning Korean is really important for their lives, but at that age, they really can understand the real importance of it. And, you know, so as teachers trying to give them and, you know, support them and teach them the things that they need to know. And I have some concerns about how we can, you know, promote and give them encouragement, you know, motivation to finish that test.
One of the most important things is collaboration and feedback between students themselves. Because, for example, if I see that my peer is encouraging me or is just starting even talking to me in a heritage language, he or she will be interested and will encouraged to do that. And also, it's always like that I have the same experience. When I go to non-native speakers, I feel more confident in my English language. But when I go to English language speakers, I don't feel that much confident. So students, heritage language students, they have the same feeling. If they talk to each other in their heritage language ability, even if it's not that good, but they feel more confident. Their self-efficacy is much better. And when they see each other progress toward learning that, when I see my other peer, okay, he just started also maybe last semester, and now he's improving. So I can be like him. Modeling is very, very important in learning, as we all have models in our learning. Sometimes our models can be our teachers, our professors, and sometimes just can be our peers. And in language learning, especially modeling, is very important. Because nobody knows my math ability. I just can go and say, I'm very good at math, and you don't see that. But my language ability is something that as soon as I open up my mouth, you will see how it is. So modeling is even more important in language learning and language teaching. And one of the strategies that, in answering you, one of the strategies as teachers we can promote is self-regulatory strategies. By self-regulating our students, we can promote their engagement. And what I mean from self-regulatory strategies is like goal setting, planning, time management. They need to learn it themselves. Because even as teachers, we have to do that. We have to set goals for ourselves. We have to make lesson plan. We have to, make the exam, the test, and we also have to study ourselves. Teacher preparation program nowadays, they are very, very focusing. They are very focused on teacher preparation and teacher development. Even teachers that they have 20, 30 years, now they are going back to teacher development program because they need to refresh their knowledge, they need to refresh their new skills and the strategies of learning. And one of these strategies is self-regulated learning and also technology. So as teachers, we also need to update ourselves with technology. We need to update ourselves with new strategies. And time management is not something easy to do, especially all of us are busy, and our students are busier than what we are. Because these heritage language students, other than learning Korean language, they have to learn math, they have to learn science. It's not really easy. So they have a lot of responsibility. And sometimes they have their peer pressure. If I don't see my friend this week, then I'll be caught, you know it. So we have to get together with our friends also, otherwise I don't look good, I don't look cool at the school. So they are also very busy and they have a lot of things to deal with that. So for them, time management, planning, and be self-regulated is very important. And also self-regulation, people, they thought before that it's something that I have been born with, but it is not true. Research, many research studies in recent years, like 10, 20 years has been done, which shows that self-regulatory strategies can be taught. And one of the ways that we can teach that is through modeling, which is very important. And by promoting our students to do a step by step and take just little step is very important. Because if they see that they are improving, it has very big effect in their encouragement. Okay, could you go to...
여기까지 이해하셨어요? 그러니까 뭐가 중요하다? 그런데 어떻게 그 인트리지 안으로 모티베이션 하는 거, 내면의 모티베이션 어떻게 모델링이 굉장히 중요한데 누구한테 모델을 찾는 거 같아요? 친구, 피얼, 그러니까 같이 그룹으로 뭘 하면서 어떤 학생이 자기의 모델이 되고 자기가 직접 그 발전하는 거에 자기가 어떻게 발전하고 있는지 자기 스스로가 모니터링 할 수 있어요. 여기까지 이해하시죠?
Some of the formative assessment that I want to share with you is that we always have to raise questions in our classroom. We have to promote them to ask questions. And we also have to ask them to share their knowledge and to share their decision making and the decision making for the classroom also. If we want to give them an exam, or if we want them to give them a book or a summary to read, we have to ask their opinion. We have to get them involved in the decision making. In a student-centered, not teacher-centered classrooms. In teacher-centered classroom, everything is done. Every decision is done just by teacher. Teacher is like a master who just does make every decision, every planning, every kind of activity. But in a student-centered classroom, all we do is we share the students' opinion in our classrooms. We ask their expertise. We want to know. In many of our classrooms, our students are much better than this, even the teacher, especially with technology. It's not bad, it's a great idea to ask them to share. That promotes them. It's good for us and it's good for them to ask them, okay, do you know how to make a PowerPoint for me? With even 5 words, 5 sentences in Korean. It makes them to be self-efficient. They believe in their ability and it also helps us. And it's something that is just an activity, because we want to give them more activities and this activity, because it's just, I come and I just say something here. I know after 10 minutes, after 15 minutes, you all get bored and you all get disengaged. So I have to make you focus on what I am learning by making you also involved in the process. By asking you a question and ask you, what else do you want me to talk about? If there is a good question, please ask. Or if you want for the next 5 minutes that I am taking your time, please tell me what you want. This is the same thing in our school, especially in any kind of a school, but especially in heritage language school. It's very important.
여기까지 이해하셨어요? 근데 가만히 생각해보니까 그 평가라는 게 우리가 생각하는 그런 시험이 아니었는 거예요. 이 왼쪽에 해당되는 모든 것들이 포머티브 어세스먼트에 들어가는데 매력이 강조하는 거는 애들한테 아까 제가 말씀드린 자극을 줘요. 그러니까 얘네들이 할 수 있는 거를 자꾸 물어서 걔네가 뭔가를 할 수 있게 해주면 그 질문 있어요. 질문이 없던 걸 보면 안 돼. 이 포머티브 어세스먼트에서 질문을 자꾸 받으려고 그러잖아요. 예.
You can involve them, in group work team by asking them to, because this, now everything is done online, to go and have discussion online in Korean. They can, connect to maybe their best friend or they just peer or whoever is available, 3 or 4 of them, and have a discussion online in Korean. That makes them, to get busy and to get involved. Because if we just give them one book and tell them just read the book and then next time I'm going to ask you about what is in the book, they are not going to do that. Or if they do that, they just do that because they have to do it. Because they feel that they have to answer the teacher. But they are not motivated. They really not motivated internally. So we have to give them some activities to make them involved. Okay? And one of these formative assessment, next please. One of these formative assessment that is, I guess I have talked about this. Do you have any question? If you don't have any question, you can go on to the next slide. Okay, formative assessment, what's important about formative assessment is that increase of self-reflection. Self-reflection is very important in learning because it tells me what I need to do next. Next, please. What are some of our classroom practice that we can do as teachers? Would you share with me some of your practice that you do? Just some of your activities that you do in classrooms.
잘했잖아요. 우리 했잖아요. 하나 말씀해 주세요.
Maybe Hayon can give us one example about the activity that you do in your classroom. Just one, yes, just one.
Actually, we practiced the number. 아니, 우리 아까 한 번만 말씀해 주세요. 갑자기 생각나는 거 잠깐. Yeah, when we learn numbers, 뭐죠? Calling someone?
You can utilize the clock to learn numbers.
Yeah.
You can play around with the clock to learn numbers. And sometimes you can make a activity by gathering people by the number you call. If you say 4, then the one group will gather together and the four in that group.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. The next thing that I want to talk about, and it's maybe the last thing, it depends on how you want us to continue, because we have about, I guess, 20 more minutes. So in next maybe 2-3 minutes, I want to introduce self-assessment to you. Self-assessment, other than being a kind of formative assessment that can be used with other assessment activities, is also a self-regulatory strategies. What does self-assessment mean? Self-assessment means that I, as a learner, choose learning strategies. After I choose my learning strategies based on what topic I have, then I self-monitor myself. It means that I monitor how I am doing in that learning, in that situation, how I do that. And the last phase of that is self-judgment. Self-judgment means that I judge if this strategy has been helpful or not. Could you go to the next one, please? Self-assessment is, what does it mean? What is the definition of self-assessment? Self-assessment means that I, as a student, learn about my own weakness and my own strength. And self-assessment has has been proved in many research that it raises self-efficacy. And what is self-efficacy? Self-efficacy means my belief in my own ability to learn.
너무 중요한 거 말씀하셨는데 우리가 여태까지 배운 어세스먼트 2개가 뭐죠? 포머티브, 서머티브, 하나 더 셀프 어세스먼트라는 걸 지금 얘기하고 있네요. 예, 이게 셀프 뭐 해줄까요? 에피카시? 그게 뭐냐면 내가 잘할 수 있는 능력이 있다고 믿는 거. 예.
Yes, teacher. Yes.
이거 뭔가 재밌는 걸 하는 것 같습니다.
Yes.
예, 이거 하나.
This is model of self-assessment, and I think this model is very, very helpful in students, promotion of students and engagement with the students, and make them more confident. And this self-assessment is by Macmillan and Hearn, which are very good researchers, and many research has shown that this model is very helpful in the process of learning. Because a student, they can themselves adapt some strategies that make them, that make their self-efficacy better. But we as teachers, we have to give them some option. We have to tell them, you can choose your learning strategy. If rote memorization is good for you, just do that. But if memorization is not good for you, if you just want to, by writing or by having diary or daily journal, you want to write something, just do that. So it's, for us, our responsibility is just giving them some options, and for them, their responsibility is to choose that, to choose whatever is good and whatever works for them. And after that, they have to self-monitor. One of these tools that they can use for self-monitoring is checklists. They plan for themselves, and they just have a self-checklist. It means that today I am going to do this. It's very simple. It's a simple strategy, but it's very helpful. It helps them to see that today I had to do this, but I didn't. So next time I have to work on my self-regulation, or I have to make up for that. It's very easy thing, but it's very helpful because it shows them that how they are doing. And the next step is self-judgment. What self-judgment means here is that, okay, I did adapt this strategy, but it didn't help me. It was not helpful. Or I didn't self-monitor myself, so I was not successful. Or no, I did everything and I was successful, so I go back and do those things again. It's like a circle, it's like a loop. As you see here, it's like a loop. If I see at the last phase that I am doing good, I am doing all right, so I go back to the next phase, which is also the first phase of the last circle, which was learning strategies. I adopt those. But if I see that I was not successful, I just change my strategies. Self-assessment is very important because, as I said, it can be a form of formative assessment, and also it's a self-regulatory strategies. If we as teachers, we really emphasize in the importance of self-assessment and also include this self-assessment in our formal grading, then they are willing to do that. Then they are willing and encouraged to do that. If we ask them, okay, give me a report of your self-assessment loop, I call this circle a loop. Just give me a report of that. For how long you did that? Was it just 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or was it for whole semester? If they make a report of that this week I did this, it was not successful, why it was not successful, or why it was successful, what helped me or what did not help me. Just by making that report, they be more self-aware, they have more self-reflection, and this will help them to adjust their learning strategies and their time management, their planning. Maybe in the process of giving me a report of that, by self-assessing themselves, they realize what was wrong. If they self-monitor themselves, if they have a schedule for themselves and they don't go through that, if they don't do the goal setting or planning or time management, they will realize what was wrong. And but I just cannot say, go and do self-assessment by yourself. They are not going to be motivated to do that. But if I tell them that this will affect in your final grading, this will affect in your final assessment, and I will really give, for doing this, I will give you extra credit, then they will do that. And the reason that we want to do that, because we want them to be aware of what they are doing and what they are doing which is not helpful or which is helpful for them. Sorry, I don't hear you.
Yes, I understand in this room the students are still learning, but most of, I don't know, other school, in my school, most of students in kindergarten and elementary school students. Do you think we can actually apply this self-assessment and this kind of processing? Do you have the knowledge about that? Can you give us little details?
Sure. Actually, before this self-assessment is a self-regulatory strategies. As I told you before, they used to talk that we are born with that. If we are self-disciplined, it means that we have born with that characteristics. But nowadays, they say it's not something that we born with that. And at the age of 3, we can train our children to be self-regulated. So elementary school and preschool is not too soon. They can learn it at age of 3. And as we all know, the best things and the things that stays with us forever, are things that we learn it in our childhood. So even then we can start doing that. But maybe we have to be a little bit more simple. Maybe we can give them a checklist which is just 4 sentences. As I given you a handout which just has 4 sentences, I didn't want to make it complicated, because if your students are beginner self-regulated, or if they are in elementary or preschool, even then we can give this 4 sentences to them. But we can use words that are more simple. For example, an elementary school student, we want them to set a goal for themselves that, okay, from 5 to 6 o'clock every evening, or 3 to 4 in the afternoon, every afternoon, I will practice my heritage language. That's self-assessment. If at the end of that week, or if at the end of that day, I go and check if I did that or not, and then make a report of that, just very small note. It doesn't have to be like an essay. I just make a note that today I did the goal that I set. I wanted to study from this time to this time, and I did that. It's very, very simple steps, but it really has very, very effective, results. Many studies has been done by educational psychologists, which their focus is motivation and self-regulation and engagement. Many research has been done, and it has shown that it's very effective. Self-assessment is very effective.
아니, 다 안 들으신 것 같지만 잠깐 더 하려면 아까 셀프 레귤레이션이나 셀프 어세스먼트 타고나는 건 아니다. 그래서 교육을 통해서 이루어져야 되는데 몇 살부터 가능하다? 3살. 유치원이면 결국 어린 나이가 아니거든요. 그런데 굉장히 간단하게 이거를 할 수 있다고 하는데 제 생각에는 엄청 게 예를 들어서 양치질 맨날 하잖아요. 양치질 하고 나서 양치질 하기 전에 뭐 이번에 숫자를 배웠으면 숫자 5까지 센다. 그거를 일주일 동안 매일매일 하게 한 다음에 했는지 안 했는지 체크하는 게 셀프 어세스먼트. 그러니까 아주 간단한 것을 시작으로 해서 애들한테 계속 트레이닝을 시키자는 거죠.
그것이 어떻게 모티베이션을
아, 그런데 아까 메리안이 계속 얘기하는 게 아이들이 자기가 선택하도록 해야 된다는 거예요. 그러니까 활동도 너 꼭 이빨 닦을 때 숫자 계속 뭐 얘기해야 하면 이제 그게 더 이상 재미없는 활동이니까 너가 뭘 하고 싶은지 먼저 선택을 하는 거야. 너가 밥 먹고 나왔을 때 숫자를 할래. 아니면 뭐 숫자 하기 싫으면 다른 거라도 얘가 선택하자는 거야. 그냥 오픈으로 해주시면 안 돼요. 절대 선택 안 해요. 다 하겠다고 하니까 5가지를 넣어놓고 5가지 중에 뭘 할래 물어봐서 자기가 선택을 하게 한 다음에 계속 자기가 선택을 하고 자기가 하게 하면 그게 자기 스스로가 하고 싶은 마음이 드는 거죠. 근데 선생님이 계속 시키는 거는 절대 재미없는 활동이 된다는 거죠. 아, 지금 이거 셀프 레귤레이션? 이게 셀프 어세스먼트. 잘 따라서. 아, 그게 아니고 지금 이 셀프 어세스먼트를 자기가 뭔가를 꼬박꼬박 하는 것을 자기가 체크하는 거예요. 근데 이것을 예, 그렇죠. 근데 나중에 뭐 그냥 하라고만 하고 놔두면 안 되니까 맨 마지막에 너가 이거를 지금은 못하지만 그동안 어떻게 해왔는지를 너가 얘기를 하면 그거를 점수를 준다고 그래요. 그런 식으로 자기가 나는 했다라는 거를 말로 하는 거예요. 아니면 글로 쓰게 보면서 정말 했는지 자기 스스로가 체크합니다.
And now that we have talked about the self-assessment, and if you don't have any question, I want you to do a self-assessment activity, please, and then share it with each other and give each other feedback about it. Self-assessment, just my intention here is for you to see that it is very easy, but it also needs thinking. So you need to think a little bit about it and make a plan for yourself, and also tell your peer that how you are going to monitor that plan. If you do that, it means that you are doing a self-assessment activity. Thank you. Just for a few minutes, if you can do that.
선생님들한테 상당히 도움이 되거든요. 그래서 한번 연습을 해보시죠. 그리고 끝나시면 옆에 있는 사람 도와달라고 서로 피드백을 줘요. 피드백이 중요하기 때문에. 네. 그 학생들이 자기가 원해서 온 게 아니잖아요. 그렇지만 최소한 수업에서만은 제가 원하는 걸 해주라는 거죠. 그러니까 우리는 완전히
문제는 미들스쿨까지는 제가 할 수 있는데 결국 미들스쿨에서는 셀프 모티베이션이 있어야 되잖아요. 근데 이제 이 셀프 어세스먼트라는 걸로 어떤 셀프 자기 자신에 대한 좋을 것 같긴 할 수 있지만 이게 코리안 랭귀지를 어떻게 말도 중고등학교 가서도 모르지 않는 그런 거를
그러니까 지금 내려오는 그걸 내부적으로 좀 힘들잖아요. 그게 선생님이 저는 한국인이라서 남길 수 없고 뭐라고 하면 외국인 말을 많이 말지만 그게 스스로가 자기가 끝까지 내면에
계속 그걸 스스로
그러니까 어렸을 때부터 트레이닝을 시키는 거죠. 그러니까 초등학생 때부터 그러니까 유치원에서 한국어를 배울 때 계속 이걸 해라를 하는 거고 뭘 할지 제 의견을 계속 하는 거죠. 애들 생각했으니까 오늘 뭐 내가 하고 싶은 활동 이거 재미있는 게 있어. 선생님이 뭐 이거 해요. 원하는 게 있잖아요. 그런 거 자꾸 들어주는 거야. 자꾸 들어주고 했을 때 뭐 이제 시험 보니까 틀렸다 맞다가 주는 거고 네가 얼마큼 했냐는 인플레이션 시키는 거야. 너 매일매일 공부해서 얘가 했다고 하면 그래? 그러면 정말 됐어. 그러니까 그런 걸 수정하시고 공부하는 걸 수정하시고 하는 거 있어요. 너무 맞지? 네가 그런 게 있어. 그래서 이들은 왜 중요해요?